Happy Friday, everybody. It's been a long, long week. Must be like 2, 3 weeks for a cash, but for me, it's just chill. I'll check it out. Risk of Rain new DLC. I unlocked the character. Nice. Yeah, that's what's up. And the music is great too. But back to the topic. The topic of chaos theory. Uh, I had biases before, and maybe I still do, and it'll never go away. But I think that like if you examine like the subtext, you can kind of discover what you didn't understand before. So like let's take India, Lahore, which is Pakistan, and that other country, like the other city in Bangladesh with the whatever, right? And their lackadaisical nature to just toss garbage pretty much everywhere, and the smell of like open air defecations and stuff is very, very common. Now, oftentimes, this will get blamed on the Hindus exclusively, right? But then, like, you look at, Bangladesh, you look at Pakistan, it's like pretty much the same thing, except, they're just Muslim, or yeah, they're both Muslim majority countries, right? Or even take Punjab for instance, right? And then you bring the Punjabis over here, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're throwing garbage. They're just like dirty rat people. They're disgusting. They're littering up the place, right? And you're wondering to yourself, well, I was wondering to myself for the longest time until I figured it out today. And it was just this horrifying realization, right? Like sometimes some of the porn I'll be jerking off to, some of the like the things that I'll be looking at was very much curated by the race of people that I desire. So in the case of East Indians, right? This is what I'm talking about. Now there was this video that came out, and I commented about like how disgusting it is. I didn't even want to say what she said in the video, but like people are just bringing it up, and I thought about it like for a while, like what is with like what is this surgery for? Like apparently it's when you I don't know, I guess use a vibrator or something on your fucking ass and you just whatever. It's bruised and you need to whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Friday. So, she's doing her whole like, inappropriate stick with the innuendos and this and that. She's very much in a way emulating her husband in the comedic sense, except except without the punchlines or timing or anything like that. And it's not like it's an art form. Like you could just basically watch The Simpsons, The Family Guy, well, Ted Bundy, like pretty much any like sitcom from back in the '90s, and you kind of get an idea of like the comical style that Cash is shooting for. But then it was brought up to me, right? It's funny how like some of the people online are calling her Ghislaine. Wow, damn, that sucks, eh? You have like someone who's like literally accused of like prostituting and then like also getting girls to prostitute for her for Jeffrey Epstein, and you're the one being called Ghislaine. Like, yo, I thought like Ghislaine Maxwell, right? She'd be called Ghislaine. But no, Ghislaine is now Akash's wife's name. So I thought about like this one clip of hers, right, where she's talking about she has two butthole stories, right? And then I'm like, it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh my god, dude, no way, man. See, and I heard about this before, right? So when some girls tell you that they're virgins and shit, like that's what that's about. And I was like, oh god damn it, man. Like I would dread having daughters just knowing this type of shit. You know what I mean? And I do mean shit. No pun intended. Um, it's beyond disgusting, right? And now whether or not you want to take part in that, or whatever, you turn your nose up at it. like I watched porn before, and like I was naive to it, and then I thought about it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, it probably does. It probably would smell like, bad if you did that. But then I thought, like, what am I getting to the point of, right? And it just made total sense. So what if, right? Like you take honor killings, and that's why I brought up these three places because, like it or not, like India has the second largest population of Muslims outside of I think Malaysia or Indonesia. I don't know. I think it's Malaysia, right? So outside of that one country, like they have the most. So these three places, right? So you'll take, Delhi or wherever. Like I think it's Mumbai, which has like the large pollution and littering and all that stuff, and then Lahore, and then that one place in Bangladesh. And what I'm getting at is, I've known guys I grew up with who, whether it was their own family members or someone that they knew within their like religion, culture, all that shit, like if they found out that that girl was dating somebody, that they would go after her and they like beat her up or whatever, right? It was very, very common. Like it wasn't like unheard of. And as like time went on, like I think it still happened around when my little sister was going to high school, but it was just like very subdued. Like it happened when I was going, so like am I we're not that far apart age wise. So and you hear about these honor killings here and there, right? Like their entire family jumps in, and I have a theory behind not just that, but to the reason why like people are so, for lack of a better term, they're like they have a strong affinity for feces, for filth, for waste, for throwing garbage, and for polluting flies, disease. They have an affinity for it because it reminds them of sex, and like helps them with their sexual gratification, their release, because they practice anal sex almost exclusively, right? So there, like I commented, like, I think, forget it. Like there are cultures out there that will check if a girl bleeds. Yeah. So like this isn't unheard of, but to get to what I'm trying to conclude, which is, yeah, man, like this is something that is very common in their culture, and because it's like whatever, like they can't necessarily get in trouble for it or like whatever, like they don't look down on it. It happens, right? Now, why Jasleen has those bruises, whether or not it was given to her by um what's his name again, Cash ATM, or like some other white boy, some of them, one of them white boys came around town. Like I think it matters very little in the grand scheme of things because I basically solved the problem. Like I've figured it out. Like why these people are like this because of their affinity for anal sex, and not just that. It's like they have uh, a type of loyalty to their family where they have to constantly punk, Hindus. You know what I mean? Like they have to treat them like less, even though they're speaking their language, they're living in their country. They're basically doing the same thing to us what they're doing to white people in the European and North American, immigrations and stuff. Right? I'm just like I'm not just talking about like newly landed immigrants. I'm talking about like pretty much every single like member of their religion, culture, all that shit, right? Because we're beginning to see like this is a universal thing. Like they come in, they pretend to be nice at first, then they get their numbers up, and then they turn on you, and then they start like tarnishing your reputation. Literally, like there's a city in London, not sorry, UK, called Birmingham, which is so so much like the cities that I mentioned. It's almost poetic. It's like you're repeating the same like lifestyle that you had because of your sexual desire for not only like the smell of like your disgusting activities, but like also like your affinity for like hanging around kids and stuff. Oh my god, dude, the amount of videos that have recently come out about the exact same thing about Muslim men trying to groom little kids in like school parks at elementary schools. It's insane. And like if you think it's just the Muslims, dude, oh my goodness, the Sikhs as well, which is like I have to like emphasize like this video I'm gonna make on Jaskarn Jaj, aka Jackie Judge, is going to be like the greatest, most large, most extensive video of my YouTube news reporting career. I gotta get shout outs to Janan and his homeboys who went to school with these guys who like they knew his little cousin or whatever, who was like I think it's his little cousin who was like basically helping him groom these little kids in his high school. But it's the affinity that they have for feces, for waste, for filth, and decay. It's like a never-ending obsession of theirs, where even though they'll pretend to you like, nah, we're not all like that. If you catch them in their countries where they're a majority, you're gonna find the exact same problem over and over and over again. And before anybody says, "Oh, this is a global thing. Everybody pollutes. Everybody like has like wastes and stuff." Like, no, I'm talking about like to the point where you're purposefully like making it vastly worse for younger generation. And I think it's mostly because of contempt, right? Like most people hate kids nowadays. Like you're getting these feelings that like especially Gen Z as they're called, are just like the most hated group of individuals on the face of this planet, right? I think there's a reason for that. Because if you can strangle their ability to make money and be successful in life, like, by mitigating their careers, by like, hiring foreign workers or like, outsourcing their jobs to AI and all that stuff, like, you could basically deplete their money. They can't buy houses, housing is more expensive than it's ever been. And my theory behind that is because these losers who, like the smell of shit, like the smell of waste, right? They can't compete with these guys. And everybody knows, not only will the girls their age, like their peers, reject them, right? Like, I'm talking about, sorry, fuck, I'm getting confused. Will reject these people with an affinity for, well, let's be honest, if we're talking about this, we have to talk about the biggest elephant in the room, which is the aggressive homosexual, right? Now, the aggressive homosexual who most likely will never admit to their sexual proclivity, we've all seen it before. Like, if I were to go up to Puff Daddy and be like, yo, you're a gay lord, you're a fag, this and that, he would want to kill me, despite the fact that that is very much true, right? Now apply that to all those guys you see walking around with their like hoodies and masks, right? Trying to like intimidate people, trying to like get people to like be afraid and like fear them in perpetuity, because it's like they can hide their identity and they can show up in force like that, whilst everybody else, if you try that, you go to jail. And we have to understand the reason why that is. It's because we have these aggressive homosexuals who, again, they like the smell of waste, filth, blood, most likely, right? And they're like, working in like unison to mitigate the ability of the younger generations to not only be successful in life and find employment and like love and this and that, but to make the world a lot worse for them. So unlimited immigration, unlimited crime basically. And what are these kids supposed to do? I'm sorry, kids. Sorry. What are these young people supposed to do? Right? It's pure chaos. That's what it is. That's why Trump got elected. Because sanity won. But even though Trump got elected in America, the rest of the world that suppresses their population, they are they're not going to let the right win. They're not going to let the right side, the right wing coalitions or whatever win. And even though there are like people who, well, let's be honest, they are very naive, and they think that the right and the left are interchangeable, and that the Epstein files are never gonna get released. Trump is a fraud. This that, and like to be fair, I understand that like there's way more important things than these Epstein files going on right now. But like I kind of knew in the back of my head that like Trump was never involved, and it was always this like kind of bullshit thing where I was funny. I gotta watch this episode of Mimology where it's the thumbnail is the best. Okay. The thumbnail says you're in the files, and then it's a thumbnail of his face. It just looks like he's like fucking scared. He's so like whatever. You're in the Epstein files there, buddy. And it's just like, oh no. I gotta watch that episode. But like, yeah, like we are almost at like the crossroads, right? Because they're never going to be able to go back to being normal, let alone being liked. They're always going to be hated forever, right? And they know that the whole world hates them because their bullshit about immigration only works one way. For like against you, basically, right? Like you can't necessarily say, "Oh, let's have unlimited immigration into their countries and like get all the benefits in there." Like, right? It's always you helping them out in a charitable stance, a charitable way, and like the world has become a charity for poor stupid people, and we have to bring it up because it's like, how are you gonna tell me, right, that you're gonna get together in a group of people with masks and stuff, and like in a show of force to intimidate people, and you're not alone. Like I see the Sikhs do the same thing. You guys are all fucking dickweeds because guess what? The women are all for us now. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Jisleen has spoken. She likes them white boys. You know what I mean? You can dress white. You can act white. You could even dye your hair. You know what I mean? But the best thing about it all is that if this incident has taught me anything between these two individuals, like I don't know, like the weirdest thing about this is that I thought this was like a product of my generation. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really see that too much of that with my younger sister and her crowd. Not to like I paid attention to it, whether or not they had a racial affinity for their own people and stuff, right? But like I didn't see it, right? Like I didn't see that level of racism from them, right? Like you would see Pakistanis dating like Chinese or whatever, right? Like it was just everybody was just either friends or going out with each other if they liked each other and stuff, right? But to see like the age 10-year gap between these two individuals, but that hard-coded racism of like, superiority, cucking out to white people, and like, hating on yourself and your own race. Like, I don't think it's ever gonna stop with them. Like, it's always gonna be something where they just perpetually hate themselves. And it's not like uncommon. There's like other cultures around the world. I'm not gonna name names, but like, you know what I mean, right? And whether it's from conquest or just from admiration, right? It's always the same. Men in your race are nothing because the men in their race can do everything, right? I think the hardest would be like to see your women getting prostituted out, basically, to these kinds of people. Like a white guy will come to your country, have money, and then, you're just whatever, a villager, a laborer, whatever. And then you see like a girl you thought was pretty, and then she's just going out with some like, white guy and shit. And then like, what they'll do to you, like, mentally and shit like that. And we all have to experience it in one way, one shape or form, right? Like it's just, something in perpetuity that I think most races outside, like, select few, will always experience no matter what. And yeah, like her insincerity too. Like I think that because it's kind of indicative of just like, the transition, right? So let's say like Akash and Ghislaine met in like Australia and stuff. Like they would have an Australian accent. They would, you know what I mean? Like they would maybe dress a little differently, maybe have different hairstyles, I guess. But I think their problem would be pretty much identical, right? Where you have this guy, and he's constantly trying to be ironic and this and that, and they just fight with each other, and then eventually she has to assert her dominance on him because he's so weak. He has to film her getting married to him. He has to film her whatever, and maybe she likes that to an extent, but then does she like being talked to like that? And then you take like a step back and then you ask yourself, like, what are they really all about? And it's like that smell, that the feces, the waste, the filth. Oh, I'm a virgin, I'm this, I'm that. Like, the fuck are you talking about, right? Like, that's the kind of like, decay that, even I grew up with these kinds of people. And I had no idea. I was like, yeah, they're just Indian like me, they're just brown like me, that's cool. I was so far from the truth, abstract from it. I had no idea. And of course, there's always going to be people out there who doubt this, and rightfully so. Even I doubt it. I have to doubt it. Like, there's no way people can be this level of depraved and disgusting. But then, it makes sense after a while. It really does, right? Because if you can escape dying, right? Or just like, serious abuse from having anal sex with guys instead of like, normal, then why wouldn't they do it, right? I mean, I couldn't put myself in those shoes in that situation, obviously, being a guy myself, but it's got to be more than just a theory, as chaotic as it seems, right? Think about it, because I'm coming out with my Jaskarn video. Well, anyways, happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for watching my long ass video. Take care.